Welcome back. I'm Tim Modise, and thank you for joining us this evening. And I invite you to participate in our discussion on Twitter. The hashtag is the Modise Network. Now, the media carried the reports, parliamentarians screamed and shouted, the NGOs lodged charges, and academics produced reports. Repeated corruption allegations captured the public's mind, and in time, a downgrade for the country. The economy is not growing and the public debt has risen. Several individuals, including President Jacob Zuma, are no longer in their jobs. And the courts have been working overtime whilst the suspects are on the run. This has got to do with what we now know as state capture. And the question we ask is, will the Judge Zondo Commission add any value into making sense of what happened within the South African public system? What is the extent of the damage, and will South Africa recover? My guests are Wits senior economist Lumkile Mondi, who's with us here this evening, and welcome, and the CEO of the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, Wayne Duvanage. Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you very much.
We've crossed paths so many times.
Yeah.
We've had different conversations, and finally the commission is now about to sit and in the public now and take submissions from the different people implicated. Do you expect a lot from them? How much do you expect from it, Wayne?
Oh yes, I think we do. I liken this to a jigsaw puzzle. The pieces are now going to start falling in place. The picture's going to get a lot clearer, and there are going to be a lot more links that implicate so many other people. And without a doubt, I mean, we're excited about this, but it's going to take a while. And we know that there will be parallel cases outside of this in the courts, hopefully, and it's going to be interesting.
Well, the two of you did not just sit back and comment about it. You did something about it. Let me start with you, Lumkile. Together with your colleagues, you compiled a report to look at the impact of the state of capture. What did you find, if you can just talk through how you went about compiling that report?
Thanks for having us, Tim. Tim, we are very encouraged by a number of South Africans. I mean, Wayne, through his organization, OUTA, and many that are working in that organization. The journalists in our country were fantastic, Amapungane, and various other media organizations. But more importantly, South Africans who from time to time were whistleblowing about what was happening in execution. And us as academics had to try and assemble and make sense as to what that means, given the theory and the knowledge that is embedded at universities. And therefore we use that to try and put together those pieces that were already there for us. But more importantly, to try and put academic theory into it, into whether is there a shadow state that exists in South Africa, and what are the politics of state capture. So for us, we really use what was available to really strengthen the work that has been done by all these organizations.
And Wayne, through your organization, OUTA, you even compiled a booklet, right,
yes,
which you distributed to parliamentarians and any other interested parties.
Yes.
When did you, I mean, when you formed OUTA, the intention was to fight e-tolls. But when did you figure out that there's something going on that's unusual, untoward, and it requires the mobilization of government and parliament and the public at large?
Well, we towards the end of 2015, we got a lot of requests to go beyond e-tolls, to look into matters of state capture. Hadn't been formed that specific term, but we could see, and everybody could see, as Lumkile says, the Omabugani, a lot of media releases around exactly what was going on. And if you look back to 2007 and you see the revaluation of state assets or the state-owned entities' assets, you can start to see the clear picture where government had a plan to go and start plundering the capital expenditure and the big budgets that were applied there. So it was a journey, and we said if we got the funding right, and we got the people on board, we built our own litigation capacity, research capacity, investigations, and put these project management structure in place. And so we've given birth to an organization that's gone from 5 people to 50 people now, putting lots of cases and projects together. And that document, called No Room to Hide, was born just over a year ago, about 18 months ago, when we started to decide to put together a case document, one that could almost stand up in court with lots and lots of evidence to back up these charges that we laid in there.
And then you decided in a very interesting way that this report that you had compiled should be given to the parliamentarians. What happened then?
Well, we got wind that a lot of them read what was going on, and it was an eye-opener for them. And for the first time, they weren't seeing headlines. They were seeing a report that was backed with a lot of evidence. And it was telling. And what had happened is that in May, when we got a copy of the Gupta leaks, we were able to, because we were starting to prepare a case that was going to go to the Constitutional Court, and then we were able to fill a lot of the gaps and make a very compelling case document. And so we decided to present that because there was the motion of no confidence that was coming up, and we wanted the parliamentarians to be well informed of that. And you saw a big swing. I mean, Jacob Zuma just held in there. But we've now, for the Commission, decided to break that up because we've added a lot more information into a number of chapters, and we'll be giving that to the Commission, and it will be spread out over some time.
Now, Lumkile, looking at your report, Betrayal of the Promise, and piecing all this information together, and as you say, underpinned with academic theory and so on, what were your conclusions in the report?
Well, firstly, Tim, it's very important for us to go back to 2007 again, because at that time, South Africa's balance sheet was very, very strong. We had our debt to GDP ratio of about 28%. So by 2016, when the public projected report came in, and we look at what the Reserve Bank and the Statistics South Africa were showing us, our debt levels had ballooned tremendously. And we were asking questions about, this has doubled. What have we seen on the ground? Because usually when countries have spent so much, you usually see huge infrastructure. It's all in your face. You can see, oh, there used to be a train moving from here to there. Now there's 3, you know what I mean? And we didn't see that. So we said, there is, but also at the same time, there was rhetoric around radical economic transformation. So those, and what that meant within a developmental state, as the ANC had seen itself, made us to ask more questions. And we said, okay, we understand in many countries such as ours, where there's a history of marginalization, that there might be a case for some rents to be made. So those rents could be rents that are developmental. I mean, all countries do have rents and do deals. And we said, maybe there are rents that we can tolerate in society, because even though people are taking money out of the system, but there's developmentalism, you know, so the net effect is positive. In this case, we're not seeing that. So we said, maybe there's something more to this rent-seeking behavior that is taking place in South Africa. As we were scratching, then we saw there was something larger than what we'd seen in other countries such as Malaysia around rent-seeking. There was a shadow state. It is this state that was controlling everything. When we scratch, we saw that at the top there was President Zuma, but we're trying to link him with all this. We couldn't find the link. But we then look at what was happening at departments. We saw at DPE what was happening.
Meaning the Public Enterprises Department.
Yes, the public enterprise. We asked ourselves, why did Barbara Hogan leave so promptly? And then Malusi comes in, and then suddenly there's changes at the board level. So this for us made us very inquisitive as academics. And in that process, we're digging up. We came to the conclusion that South Africa has been captured. Our state has been captured. And in fact, the public protest report had started the work. So really, using her work and what we're finding out, it reinforced really, giving us a theory around state capture. That we do have our state being captured. And this state is a shadow state. It's not a constitutional state.
And the party then in charge of government, was it aware of all of this? Because there were a lot of denials coming from the organization itself. I mean, when presented with a variety of reports and of incidents that indicated that there was some state capture going on.
Yeah, look, I mean, they couldn't ignore what they were reading. But what they were reading was a lot of headlines, and the work that would be being done by these institutions and organizations was very good, because it started to not allow the party to look away anymore. They had to take cognizance of this. But I guess you had a very strong president who had a lot on other people, and you have somebody who ran roughshod over processes. Remember how many times the NEC knew not what the Jacob Zuma was doing when he was making these various appointments. And state capture it doesn't happen you know, by mistake. It was a very well orchestrated plan, and you need people on the inside, which is what they were doing with the various executives on the boards of these state-owned entities, and you need people on the outside, and that were the Gupta brothers and many others started.
But then, you know, we keep referring to the Gupta brothers as the people who were behind all of this. I mean, how many people? We're talking about 2-3 people. No. But what made them have so much influence on so many issues within such a broad, big system?
Yeah. I mean, firstly, Tim, we have to segregate ourselves within the relatives of South Africa. So in a country such as ours, where there's really deep inequities and with high levels of poverty, when people say justice and correcting the wrongs of the past has to be done, it sounds very seductive. It sounds like a good thing to be done. So when you're sitting there and you listen to people saying that, you may be attracted to that. However, when people are organized, so the platform of state capture is really grievances which can be understood, where people say that, you know what, there's no housing, people don't have water, or like in Mfuleni, that the water is contaminated. So for that, we need the state to do something. So that makes many people to be attracted to it, say that, yeah, they're going to do good.
Yes.
But these kitchen cabinets, as we call it, in the state capture book, they show us very, very well that behind that grievance, there is thuggery. There is a well-calculated agenda to steal and undermine a constitutional state. So what you do, you ensure that even the prosecuting institutions are undermined. You change the leadership there, you put in your own people. There is a well-documented expose around Gerard Nhlabenza, for example, what he had done before. And the Section 27 and many other organizations put on the table that this man is not fit for such an office, and then he's appointed. So this shadow state is well organized, well orchestrated, and it uses the right rhetoric around reparation and around addressing the issues of the past. So when such an organization does that, many people become disempowered and they think they're doing good until you get the work that's being done by many institutions, OUTA, Mapungane, as well as Section 27, and many other organizations.
Including the opposition parties in parliament.
They're brilliant.
Yeah.
Including, in fact, even the economic freedom fighters.
Yes.
That struggle to expose the president, that he had benefited unduly in Nkandla and therefore must pay back the money. I think that work can never be thrown away. I think they're brilliant because they kept on hammering the point that pay back the money. And in that process, I think they changed a whole lot of people who were very skeptical about them, but were very also skeptical about whether, as the president, he's entitled to a $250 billion expenditure from public purse.
On his house. That's
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. We will pick up the conversation. There are several issues that I would like us to raise. And my guests are Wayne Duvanage, who is the CEO of the organization Undoing Tax Abuse, as well as Lumkile Mondi, who's a senior lecturer at Wits University.